Ghost with Cats, Chapter 6, Surveillance Society. By mid-morning, Annie finally forced Breeze to speak to her, making him say please and thank you, teasing him that if he talked to Matt, he must talk to her. Then she completely freaked him out by patting him on the head. The humans laughed as Bourne reassured the large guard it was okay for the females to touch him. Annie wanted to cut the Eloh's hair. Are you sure? You will blend in easier. Our hair has much to do with our station in Eloh culture, Bourne explained. Mine has never been cut except where the sides are shaved. His braid was a very tight, almost herringbone style. It is unusual and therefore noticeable, she insisted. When we are in public, keep your braid tucked inside your coat and under a hat. Tall's thick, single-length black hair had only ever been trimmed to keep it in even and in good condition. Admat, if you won't let me cut your hair, you can use these. She taught him how to use ponytail bands, explaining, most of the men on this world with that style of hair keep it tied back. All the Eloh wore new caps and sunglasses and clothes. The newness couldn't be helped. She had no way to wash them. Annie tinted their skin with makeup so they would look more human as they hid in the hotel room. The only one who didn't appear changed was Breeze, whose appearance could not be altered drastically. When she was done, Matt said, "Damn, they look just like normal guys with their glasses on." But she wasn't sure, as her rules chanted in her mind about being invisible. People are going to notice them. Matt teased her. You've seen too many movies and read too many books. People don't look at anything but their smartphones now. Don't be paranoid. She retorted with a huff. Paranoia is a good thing. To Tall and Bourne, both stated how remarkable her skill at disguising them was, but Annie wasn't sure it was enough. She got a text back. It read, Wolves on the road. What does that mean? Bourne asked. Wolves are large canines, aren't they? It means they are looking for us. Wolves are predators who hunt in pack groups. They surround their prey. We have to get you three out of this area, and we can't use any form of public transportation. Annie frowned as she said it. So we are prey, Tall said coldly, obviously unhappy. Nope, we're zebras, she answered. Small striped equines? Bourne looked confused, but Matt grinned. Zebras. Cool analogy. Zebras rely on their stripes to confuse predators. They look like everyone else, so they blend into the herd. But how do we be zebras in a small college town? Matt asked. We don't, Annie answered. We need to get to Vegas. You can catch a bus home from there, and I can buy a cheap car. By noon, Annie and Matt purchased tickets on a casino bus leaving at 2 p.m., and they rode south and west to the much larger city. Annie was worried about the risk, but they had to take it. She wanted to avoid places with lots of cameras with them, which was hard in this city. As they drove, she closed her eyes and prayed their disguises would hold up. Somehow, she fell asleep on the bus. She dreamed of the hot springs retreat her parents used to take her to as a child, of a large man in a plaid shirt with his little brother who lived there, and the giant black and white cat with green eyes who followed them everywhere as they played in the meadow and picked dandelions. In her dream, Mr. Tux turned into the print on the wall of her hotel room just before she was kidnapped. It seemed he was always with her, even now. She startled awake. Her head was on Tall's shoulder. Her eyes fluttered to the front of a catalog stuck in the back of the seat ahead of them. A black and white cat in a Christmas hat. It looked like a Christmas card she received once. She started to lift her head, but Tall whispered, "Rest. You have been through much. No harm will come to you." Closing her eyes, Annie drifted off to sleep again to the oddest sensation. She felt safe for the first time in years. She sank back into the dream about the meadow. She was playing with the groundskeeper's little brother and Mr. Tux, the penguin cat. Her mother was laughing and calling them to come in for cookies. She woke to the bus slowing down in traffic. The dream made her happy and sad at the same time. It was a bittersweet feeling. It had been a long time since she enjoyed a pleasant memory of her mother. Usually, she dreamed of her mother lying in a pool of her own blood in front of a grand view of the mountains. The Eloh stared around the place the humans called Las Vegas, gawking like the rest of the visitors from other countries. The buildings all twinkled and flashed like clusters of stars in the early evening light. Once she decided to hide among the holiday traffic was their least dangerous option. She refused to doubt herself, despite her fear screaming otherwise. To Annie, the Eloh couldn't have been more conspicuous if they were waving flags. But in a town full of tourists before Christmas, she prayed they would be able to blend in. It was Las Vegas, after all. Annie knew that staying on the outskirts of the city was always safer, but unfortunately, the interstate bus terminals were deep into the city. Annie bought Matt a bus ticket to his home in Seattle on the western coast. She warned him to claim he had never been in Utah. Then she decided wandering with the crowds while they waited for Matt's bus was safer than staying in one place. Secular Christmas music and slot machine pings rang in the holidays as the desperately hopeful fed them tokens, praying for a windfall. 3 hours to go, then she would buy a car from a sale notice, and they would leave. The cacophony pushed Annie's nerves to the breaking point, but it also made Annie sad because she knew the math behind the profits and the social consequences of chasing the high of winning. A woman shouted in joy as others around her looked on with envy. Why are the others not happy for her? Tall bent his head to ask over the commotion, while Annie steered them away. Don't look up or look around. As they walked, she explained. She planned to teach Tall while Matt told Vaughan and Brees about the dangers of a surveillance society. They had to educate them about something everyone ignored, so the Eloh would have a chance of escape if something happened to either or both of the humans. One rule for a ghost: be as invisible as possible. They aren't happy for her because they were not the lucky ones. The odds of winning back the money they spent is very low, but the dream of it is a lure most can't resist. She pulled her scarf further over her reddened cheeks and nose. We have to keep moving. There are at least 20 cameras that can see us. Cameras? Tall glanced up behind his sunglasses. Electronic visual recording devices. Up in those domes. See, Matt is telling Vaughan like I told him to. You have to be extra careful in the cities. There are programs that take anthropomorphic measurements of your face and compare it to others. It's how they find criminals. Never forget, in the cities, there is always someone watching. Vorn reached out to Tall, and they shared what the humans were telling them as Matt and Annie explained to their Eloh companions about surveillance. While they moved through the city, they taught the Eloh how not to look directly at the cameras, which seemed to be everywhere, and how to use cash currency. Annie's anxiety was killing her. Too many people, too many sounds, too many lights, too much risk. She didn't want to abandon Matt and flee. She felt responsible for the young man. But she wasn't sure how much longer she could take the anxiety. After learning about surveillance, Tall understood why Annie insisted they must walk in two groups on separate sides of the streets, away from the main city bus terminals. This place was unlike any Tall had ever seen. Annie called it Sin City. All the buildings lit up and flashed like a gin swarm. Crowds of people watched public entertainment spectacles. The noise from casinos created a weird, disjointed music as they traveled. Females walked around almost unclothed in the freezing wind, offering slips of paper to people. When Tall asked Annie, "Why do these females do this?" He held out a slip of paper. Crumpling the paper, promising a special discount for special services, she simply said, "They're professionals." But Annie did not say what their profession was because she didn't know about the Eloh attitudes about prostitution. Everywhere people were gathering and moving. Music played from different venues. Tall had never seen so many females or children in one place. He was certain there were more females in this city than on the entire planet of Eloh and its two colonies. While they were waiting on one of the many people selling cars to call them back, they ate dinner at a crowded buffet. Tall noticed Annie shaking as she sat with him and Brees across the food area from Vorn and Matt. She guided him and Brees through selecting their meals and fetched whatever he or Brees wanted. The Eloh were amazed at the variety of foods offered. The food on Eloh was plentiful, but it was carefully cultivated for generations to be nutritious. The efficiency which it was produced meant it served its purpose, but the pleasurable aspect that the food of earth offered was unlike anything they enjoyed beyond the freshest blood kill. Paul noticed there were no fresh meats on any of the buffet tables and wondered about it. Vorn answered his master's curiosity after asking Matt. The humans, it seemed, rarely ate raw foods beyond fruit and leafy green vegetables because of the risk of disease and parasites, things the people of Eloh had not known for thousands of years. Matt recommended the Eloh try prime rib if they preferred rarer meats. By evening, the day after they escaped, they were standing inside the bus station again, but this time they were saying goodbye to Matt. Annie was nervous. Too many people, too many cameras. Tall watched her constantly looking everywhere and rubbing her gloved hands on her pants or clenching them in fist or biting the back of one of her gloves. "Are you unwell?" Tall asked. "We've been in the city for too long. I'm sure we've been spotted," she revealed. "There are at least two people who I have now seen at three of the same places we have been." Tall looked around. There were several hundred people around them, so he could not sense the hostile intent of any single individual. He wondered how she could be sure. He queried Vaughan, who noticed the same young man from the food buffet place and the dancing fountains. The, the human was here as well, watching them from above. Tall immediately recognized him, and a female in a small dress and fluffy jacket near the door. They were being surrounded like prey, while around them people moved and conversed, unknowing of their peril. Tall spotted a strange line of light in the air. It would be mostly invisible to humans, but to his eyes it was bright and glowing. It moved across the crowd, and he wondered what it was. He didn't get the chance to ask as it moved toward his sword pet. Annie watched as Matt was teaching Breeze how to make puns. Laughing hard, Breeze dropped his candy bar wrapper. The sword pet loved chocolate. Matt had gotten him hooked on the stuff. When Breeze bent to pick up the paper, a strange sound popped, and Matt flew over the bench behind him. Annie saw the red dot on Tall and dragged him down behind a row of seats before the next shot came, drilling a hole in the plastic trash receptacle beyond them. Bourne reacted at the same moment, dropping to the ground, dragging Breeze, who just stood back up. Matt! Annie looked at Matt's face. His expression was twisted with pain. Go, he gasped out harshly, as his hand clutched the spreading stain of crimson on his shoulder. Annie froze. Her mind filled with the image of blood spreading around her mother's body. Another shot, people screaming, and suddenly she was back in the bus terminal with Tall trying to shield her. Terrified people scattered like panicked animals, or crawled or huddled together. More shots came, but none of them seemed to hit anyone. Their attackers were trying to flush them, so Annie tossed a smoke flare she had stolen from a road hazard kit at the truck stop. As colored smoke filled the lobby, they fled in the chaos. Annie hated that they had left Matt behind. She prayed he wasn't dying. She tried not to think about it as they ran with the panicked crowd. She needed to get the Eloh away from there. As they fled, Tall realized they were not traveling randomly. He was glad Annie insisted they all carried the backpacks she acquired as she shouted at them to reverse their winter coats to change their appearance in the crowd. Soon the moon was high overhead when they arrived at a large area with strange long transports moving through it. They had left the crowds behind. Breeze, gate, Annie ordered, and the large guard easily separated the lock on the chain. She quickly relocked it with a new lock, dropping the keys on the ground. Why did you do that, Lady Annie? Vaughan asked as they went deeper into the train yard. If it is still locked, they won't know we went this way. The fence is not climbable with that kind of wire on the top. To those who work here, it will look like a lock change was made and they dropped the new keys. Tomorrow's shift will be angry with today's shift, but they won't report it. We have to catch the train headed east, she explained as she ran toward a long transport vehicle. They ran through the train yard toward the slowly moving train. A man hollered to them. He was holding a door open. Vaughan vaulted up into the moving boxcar like a high jumper, then Tall followed. Breeze tossed Annie up to Tall and then leaped up easily into the moving train car. They were safe for now, and Annie was grateful the train was headed in the right direction.